is back, the flow is real, let's peel this back. It's time to bring the A squad onto the desk, and that would include myself. We've got Thorn, we've got Chad. Guys, are we ready to kick off a little bit of Counter-Strike action here to start our day?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
You're
you so
very
much.
enthusiastic, Trace.
Yeah, you know what? I've been on, I had a day off, so it's kind of like I'm back in the rhythm
You're
now.
revitalized.
Yeah, I had a good 18 to 25 hours of sleep.
Feeling refreshed.
But enough about the first match.
It's true. That was a great Counter-Strike, albeit, but nonetheless, we are finally here. We have arrived at the third best of 3 of the day, 3 out of 4 to be exact. And if you take a look on your screen, that's Vega versus the Fragsters, followed by a little bit of NRG and North. But guys, before we get any further into our analysis of what's going to be happening going on, let's talk a little about something you might have seen earlier today.
Renegades picking dust2 was an interesting choice. I know their map pool's not very deep. They showed a little bit of fight. There was a comeback on that second map of Inferno, but Optic's confidence felt like that was just enough for them to get across the line. Config and Cajun continuing to play well. I think Config's on track if they can make it to the grand final as a contender for MVP of the tournament. So that's a note from that one.
And also in that match, usually what people criticize about Optic is usually the firepower was underwhelming. It was pretty solid in that game across the board. Then obviously we had this.
This bracket's wrong,
that's
as far
actually
as
not
I'm
the way the
aware.
bracket
This bracket
is.
is wrong. It
Yes.
should be Ents versus Optic tomorrow, but then we had that one that went 3 maps. I think that something that is strugglesome for, it was a really good comeback from Big on the first map of Overpass, but Ents were in a position to close that out, right? There was that Tizian clutch that he played fantastically well with a lot of impact rounds throughout this entire tournament. But this is a common theme that I saw from Ents at the Faceit Major as well, is that they struggled, or Minor even, sorry, that they struggled to close out matches when they were in big leads. So this is something they're still working on, I suppose.
Which is cool because this is still a team that deserves to be where they're at. They're playing pretty solid Counter-Strike for being this squad of young individuals. They've talked about Sergey being this up-and-coming player that's doing it all right and topping the stats. I mean, what do you guys say about Sergey?
Pretty good player. The thing is though, like, if you want to actually get credit, like for me, when you're like an up-and-coming player, that's like the first few tournaments. If you don't want to actually become a top player and a good player, make the next transition, you have to become consistent. You got to do it against everyone. I think he's a bit hit and miss, to be honest.
He's only 16, right? So I think, if we give, this is the thing. With the kid only being 16 years of age and already playing at this level of Counter-Strike in a team that's very structured, it isn't going to be as sporadic as what, he's not going to be top fragging one game and then bottom fragging the next. He always seems to be in that middle of the pack, and it's going to take time. I agree with Duncan, for him to become a consistent player. At the moment, he's just I guess a breakout player for 2018.
Well, here are 2 teams, and specifically one team that is really broken out here at Starladder would be the Fragsters. Of course, taking on Vega Squadron here in our third quarterfinal. Almost said semi. I don't want to jump the gun. That's tomorrow. But anyway, let's focus around.
You can't have 3 semifinals.
It's weird.
Yeah, imagine.
It would. I mean, some days, why not?
Yeah.
You never really know what goes on around here. Either way, we do have the likes of Vega Squadron, some of which might even say are the home team favorites here. Does make the most sense, I suppose. And at this time, let's get a little quick recap who we're looking at.
The Vegas.
Групповую стадию одним словом. Для меня это было тяжело. Пойдет. Хорошо. Сложно. Нормально. Да, морально все игры, скажем так, тяжелые были. Если брать игру против NRG, тяжелая была игра. Мы, по моему мнению, должны были выиграть, но выигрывали 15-14 и проиграли свою игру.
And oh my goodness, no one can stop him. Finally, JR's going to step up and get the job done. But it's a 1v2 and you've still got Cirque and Daps left to try and overthrow.
JR just playing nicely here with the time, and well, Vega Squadron, they might be getting away with this. Well, Cirque committing to the bomb here.
Оптик то же самое, в принципе, проиграли. Большой счет, там 16-9 был, но, по моему мнению, счет не по игре, потому что довольно близкие раунды были, которые могли полностью перевернуть игру. Самый большой сюрприз, скорее всего, то, как выступили Fragsters. Лично меня они сильно удивили, потому что команда довольно молодая, ребята очень хорошо играли, и я рад, что они на лане показали, в принципе, хорошую игру. Ожидание получить новые эмоции, потому что первый плей-офф этого лайнапа, и, скажем так, первая игра, возможно, на таком турнире перед публикой. Да, все, скажем так, все заряжены на то, что на победу, а на то, чтобы получить, скажем так, положительные эмоции в игре. Атмосфера в команде отличная, все веселые, все радуются победе. Кто хорошо выступил, это Энса и Energy. Лично для меня, потому что они сейчас в довольно сильной индивидуальной форме, и против этих команд, как мне кажется, тяжелее всего будет играть. Поэтому надо максимально фокусироваться и стараться за каждый раунд бороться. Все команды от нас ожидают, скажем так, неадекватных действий. Любую, скажем так, глупость можем сделать в любой раунд, поэтому ожидайте всего от нас.
Yes, the Vega Squadron doing their best JDM impression here, which, Duncan, you got anything to add on that note?
Not exactly the person you want to emulate right now. It's not working out that well for him. Although then again, he has somehow come back to a ridiculous salary, not really deserved.
The way it goes. The way the cookie crumbles and what goes around is all around. Chad, walk me through some of the tournament results here for Vega.
I think the biggest one here is the opening that they're able to push NRG to overtime. That's a fantastic result, even though it wasn't the victory. Then beating Hellraisers and Gambit, two teams who you'd consider to be from the region, but stated in an interview yesterday from Crush, they don't really play these guys very often at all, and they haven't practiced them a lot, so they just treated it like any other game, and they actually front run. Normally I expect them to win from a position of scrappy buys, but they're able to do quite easy victories over those two teams, I would say.
So Vega they've 16-7 Hellraisers on Inferno. They've 16-9 Gambit on Train. Lost 16-9 to Optic on an Inferno. And of course, bested Sprout, in which Energy also beat them on Inferno. So,
well, look at that map pool there.
Yeah.
It isn't a map pool, it's a map puddle. It's a drip of pool.
Yeah, I think that's probably their biggest problem, right? But since
it's amazing they've got the teams to let them play these maps.
Yeah, and the bester ones obviously facilitate that.
Well, let's facilitate now some Fragsters. These young guns, all the way from Denmark, have made quite the showing here, and it's a very refreshing thing, some might say.
Well, the best player on this team and the one who's made the most impact over their victories definitely has been Refresh, that's for sure. The kid, the mid-round impact, the clutches that he's been able to win, he's been the standout player for these guys. While normally Dragonfly and Starvin are having better performances, at least within the last 3 months, they've dropped off significantly while Refresh is actually playing above what he would normally do online. So that's fantastic from this kid. He's another Danish star standing out here.
Well, that's the thing as well. In this tournament especially, he has like hard carried them, especially in like some of the key wins, obviously playing against Big, etc. But that's the part of it is they're not going to win the tournament if he's the only player going off. Like eventually you're expecting Starvin to come online and contribute a bit.
Well, let's contribute ourselves to watching this next video, in which we're going to recap the Fragsters and who exactly they are.
If I had to put it in just one word, it would probably be thrilling, refreshing, expected,
challenging,
extraordinary. Well, obviously we came in as underdogs, so I guess no one really thought we would make it to playoffs, but we believed in ourselves even from the beginning, and we thought it definitely would be possible. So yeah, as expected. Well, we're feeling great, but obviously we're not trying to get a feeling of completion. We want to move on further. So we're not done here, even though playoffs was like the first stage goal for us. We want to keep winning. Only 3 matches to victory in the end. So yeah, let's get it. I don't know, I think beating North 12-3 on T-half nuke was pretty great.
Torben's still there. He's still just sat in the back lines. Refresh is ready. The clock now becomes a factor as well. And this is the timing for Torben, but he only manages to get one. That was a crucial moment. You can see Refresh. He wants to try and play this. He wants to try and stop them getting the bomb down. He's going to go running in and he finds the kill, but the bomb goes down. And it doesn't matter. Refresh goes insane.
Just to play our game as good as we can, and if we lose and play well, it's okay, but if we lose and suck, it's gonna feel like shit. The atmosphere in the team is great right now. We're obviously very good friends, also outside of the game, and we take that in the game as well. So we're feeling confident and happy right now. From all the teams in playoffs right now, I think NRG is the best team. I think that's the team to beat this tournament right now. No, we're never afraid of our opponents, but yeah, I guess I had to answer one. I can send one message to our opponents: expect to lose.
expect to lose. Not something you ever want to hear on your side of the equation, but I guess he's directing that outward. Either way, Refresh and these guys at Fragsters have certainly made a name for themselves as up-and-coming stars. And to get this far within this tournament, at least, now only in the quarterfinals, is this a team poised to go even further?
In the context of this tournament and bracket draw, I think they've got a chance to, because the good thing is, yes, we know they're like a very fresh team. They haven't actually had any deep placings in most of the tournaments they've played, which many of them are actually weaker fields than this. But the team they're going against is Vega Squadron, who themselves, they're not a team you think of as a playoff team. They're a best of one team. You saw the map pool there. They only had 3 maps. They didn't even play the other ones. So at this point in time, I think it's kind of like an even matchup, because Vega, I think, has shown a lot of tenacity in this tournament. They've played well, pretty tough field generally in the Swiss system. And then the Fragsters guys have actually looked very impressive at times.
Yeah, the problem is I was looking at their stat lines, and there's nothing that stands out other than Refresh, right? They're not even rated within the top 8 teams within the tournament, and they're playing within the top 8, right? If we've got the Vito on screen now, and this is the thing, we have seen them play Nuke, dust2, and Mirage, right? They've had 2 victories on Nuke. One was against Big in overtime, one was against North to progress. They lost convincingly to NRG on Mirage, so I assume there's that ban. I think Vega will get rid of maybe...
Well, we've got fairly opposite map pools, right? So at this point in time, Nuke's taken out. Like, if we think Fragsters, dust2's got to be a possibility, right? It's one you've got to consider, I think.
I haven't played it a lot. Like Inferno could be like a punish pick, because Vega Squadron do have that pretty abysmal
that was the game they played against NRG,
yeah,
though, isn't it?
They
so
were able
that's
to.
in your brain. There we go. Dust2 comes up. That was a map that... One of the things I liked about Frags is, and this is a map that really idealized it, was they played very loose, actually. They looked very comfortable. The amount of poise they showed was amazing. Because like I said, I thought some of these players were fairly overrated, right? What's left here? Do you dare go into, like, train if you're the Vega Squadron guys?
Train's a really good map for both of these teams. I think that would be like a pretty safe third. But here's Vega. What do they pick, right? Would it be like a cage? There you go. It's a cage, because that's one where they can be relatively scrimmy on. Even though in their last 2 victories, they looked a lot cleaner in the train game, and then the one that they were able to win against Hellraisers as well. So I think that they looked a lot cleaner in their last couple of games than they have, especially when we look back to the major and what we expected them in best of ones. Both teams here, in my mind, would be happy to get this through to train. So we've got...
The question is, though, I mean, it's going to be on... basically, Vega Squadron can make it train if they want to now. But the question I had was whether there was a deeper map pool that we didn't know about for Frags. Like whether they could have flexed in or an overpass. Because obviously, if they just banned something like Inferno, obviously the train would be the ideal one if they really had the flex. That suggests they don't, quite frankly. And also, you got to add in... Actually, it's the guys from Vega Squadron kind of taking the gamble here, which is a bit of a ballsy one. Now, interestingly enough, the reason I expected actually Train to go as the decider once we got this far is these are 2 inexperienced teams. They're not been in this position before. You actually want comfort usually for the third map. You're willing to give the other guy a map he likes as long as the one you like as well. Whereas, as you alluded to before, maybe Vega themselves are thinking because of that NRG game, well, that was the best team we've got left in the tournament. We did so well. But I agree with you. I mean, it says it right there. You look at the guy, well, that can't actually be in. Oh, no, this is dust2. You think of the Inferno game, that should on paper edge towards the Frags. Yeah. They should be the ones liking that.
Because Chopper usually goes missing in that. He came online in their last game on Inferno. I think there's a couple of things to point out with Fragsters, though. Even though they've made it through to the top 8, like I said, they're not rated within the top 8 teams of the tournament. They have only won 1 out of 8 pistols. They're the 2nd worst in the tournament at trading, right? This is all the stats. They're bottom 3 in their nade damage and flash usage, right? None of these stats are building to a team who should be able to win a game. They have a 0% conversion on winning pistol. They've only won 1, and they lost the force buy. They won 2 out of 7 force buys. So, you know, they're happy to go for that 2nd round buy. So none of the stats here are impressive. What they're doing is winning a lot of gun rounds. That has to be the case. And then Refresh has been stepping up. He is the only player with over a 1 rating. He's sitting at 1.27. So he has to come online here, right? He's been influential in all 3 of the games that they won.
That is potential MVP stuff, though.
So, sure, he's won a clutch against Big, a clutch against Gambit, and a 1v2 against North. So in all 3 of the games that they won to get to this point in the tournament, he's had huge impact. So he's even been AWPing. You saw it there in the clip of the team. He was AWPing with massive impact when the AWPer for the team is meant to be Dragonfly, and he hasn't really lived up to what we normally see from him, especially online. For me, the eye test, Torben has actually been the 2nd best player for Fragsters to this point.
The only thing is, though, like on the flip side of that, I don't really buy on the Vega Squadron that the players that I saw doing so well in the group stage are going to do as well. Because as you said, for example, that NRG game, Chopper wasn't particularly present. Everyone thinks Chopper's the new mate. It's all going through him. It was other players. Like in this tournament, the amount of times I've seen Tony Black, formerly Quebecan, have a pretty good game, like dropping 20 kills, winning clutches. That's not something you're going to see regularly. Like, I'm going to go ahead and bet on the regression to the mean there.
Sure.
He becomes an ordinary player again. Meanwhile, as we've said, actually, despite getting to this point, I've seen kind of a quiet performance out of some of the names I thought I'd see on Fragsters.
Yeah, well, just for a fun fact for everybody, Starvin and Dragonfly are actually brothers.
Which
and
is
then
crazy.
The guy behind them, if the research has been done correctly, that is their older brother as well, who I don't know if he's a manager or a coach. It doesn't actually say on any of the websites I could find, but the three of the guys from the same family are all here under that Fragsters banner. So that's a pretty cool little tidbit. But to build on Duncan's point with Vega Squadron, JR has been the most consistent player for this team. He's in-game leading as well, and he's doing that AWPing role. He is a top 4 player within the tournament right now. He's top 5 in terms of AWP kills, top 5 in terms of success of opening duels. His team has a 63.6% conversion rate on rounds after he finds the opening kill. And the majority of his frags, though, are with the AWP. So 105 kills in the tournament, and 58 of them are with the AWP. So they have to get the AWP in his hands, right? If Fragsters stay on top of the economy and JR can't get an AWP, his impact is very limited.
Let's talk about both these teams being younger by origin, but perhaps even coming all this way to the quarterfinals. Now they're in a best of 3. This is no longer best of 1s. This is something where endurance will be tested. Do we see that one team should have an upper hand in that category?
Fragsters have the deeper map pool, but neither team have proven to be a best of 3 team. They've all proven to be best of 1 team. So right here, we get to learn who is more prepared map-wise. I think if you look at the ages between both these teams, it's very similar. By aggregate, it would be younger for the team of Fragsters because Starvin is only 16. He brings it right down. So that could be something that plays in here. Duncan also made a point about Chopper not doing well. In both of the losses that Vega Squadron had, he was the lowest rated player in the whole server, right? He was the bottom fragger out of all 10 players. So look, if that happens again, we know we're talking about him having an impotent map of being Inferno. So if that's going to happen, then, you know, that's not what you want for the last map, right? You get to map number 3 and he's not able to show up. That's a really poor sign for the Vega Squadron guys.
I think as well, like for me, what's really interesting is the intangibles are all over the place in this game, because on the one hand, I think for some people, home soil had some pretty decent results. Some people probably have Vega Squadron as the favorite, and how often would that ever be the case in a tournament like this, in the playoffs? But on the other side of the equation, for the Fragsters guys, you're not particularly intimidated by Vega Squadron. You don't look at them and say, like, this is going to be so tough. This isn't like if they'd have drawn big, or if they'd have been playing against, obviously, NRG, etc. These are the teams that could make a young team start to question themselves. Then you add in, Vega Squadron was saying, there's going to be their first game in front of a live audience. Yeah, it is a live audience, but this is sort of like one step up towards a stage match without being too crazy a stage match. It's not the big pressure one. It's just another level up. So I don't actually expect a lot of the kind of external things to have much of an impact. I think it's just going to be kind of like it was in the group stage. I expect to see both teams play potentially near where you'd expect they can be.
And you saw the loot.bet odds up there on the screen. They weren't a joking manner. Of course, you see CS Money now on the screen. Of course, either way, you should probably head over to responsiblegambling.org before you head to either of those.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Gamble
I wouldn't tell
responsibly.
people what to do. Do what you want in life.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much,
liberty,
Duncan. Knife round
and the
underway.
American way.
We can check now to see where this one will go.
This one here, look, if dust2 is still up in the air, we've seen it played a lot. No one's really stabilized the meta just yet, so starting on either side historically didn't really matter. Sometimes we're seeing really strong CT halves, sometimes we're seeing really strong T halves. So this one, the knife round, even though they're putting a lot of time into this one,
maybe we don't even have a knife round.
It doesn't really matter.
We only have 59 minutes until
that's all right. Well, we can talk about some other
pretty sure
points.
I've played Fragsters on Face It before.
Oh, yeah?
Here's some fun facts about both these teams. They both have relatively long cores that have been together. Chopper, JR, and Hutchie have all been together since November of 2016. And then if you look at the Fragsters,
I'm going to guess the brothers have been together for a while. That's going to be my speculation.
A few years, perhaps. Some might even say. Imagine what team fights are like over there when things don't go their way.
They've all been together. So we've got Torben, Dragonfly, and Starvin have all been playing together since September of 2016. That's a long time. And you think about Starvin is 16 now. He would have been 14 at the time that he was playing with these guys. So, like I said, the knife round I don't think it's going to be hugely influential. The key points for me is, can they get that AWP in JR's hand, who has been one of the highest rated players in every single game that Vega Squadron have won.
Been hitting some shots as well, some no-scopes and everything.
And can Refresh continue what he's been doing throughout the matches that they've needed him to show up and have those absolutely influential rounds? You know, multi-kills, he's just been stepping up big time for Fragsters. And will Dragonfly and Starvin come online? They've been lacking a little bit.
And dare I say that both of these teams are kind of out for the same sort of blood. In some way, this is a proving ground for both of them to say, hey, you know what, we're a legitimate contender. Fragsters, for what it's worth, haven't necessarily been in this situation a lot. We've seen Vega throughout the majors, but there's quite a bit on the line in terms of that.
Well, the thing is, actually, that's the bizarre thing. If you look at like activity, it actually goes to the Fragsters. They go to the Tier 2 tournaments, they play, they get to play against top teams. The thing that I think, quite frankly, is bullshit about the Vega Squadron guys, they only play at the majors and then they never make the playoffs there. They never actually do anything legitimate. They're just like a weird upset team. I always give the analogy, it's like the bird that flies into an engine. It's not actually an engine itself, it's just a bird that can wreck an engine, that's it. So in this particular scenario, I think actually like I'm going with like consistency on the side of the Fragsters. Obviously, we've seen some big performances by Refresh. At the moment, he's got a high top. Let's hope he doesn't fade.
That's not bad. That was one of your better ones.
I pulled it out at the end.
Yeah, I like that one.
Here, just another thing about Vega while they're on the screen, they were unable to practice yesterday due to some external reasons. I don't know what that means. That was stated in the interview with HLTV.org by Crush. So I don't know what that means.
That sounds like they were already down the pub and they're like, yeah. We can't practice today. Why? External reasons?
They spoke about the map pool, apparently. So at least they would have had a good idea of what they were going into playing.
There's actually more than 3 maps. So should we learn those? I'm just going to hope that they don't pick it. Okay, well, no problem.
We got to play more than a best of one in a best, or excuse me, more than one map in a best of 3. Perhaps they were real dolls about it, potentially. Either way, let's get to these predictions. And Chad, I think you're a fantastic candidate for the first prediction here today.
I predicted on the little graphic we did last night, I predicted
Fragsters.
I went with Fragsters. Okay. And I went with that from the same feeling that Duncan is, that they look like the more consistent unit. They're not as sporadic as a team like Vega Squadron. But none of the stat lines here are selling me on Fragsters, right? There's no consistency in anything. They're not winning pistol rounds. They're not having a lot of success with like force buys or conversions when they do win pistol rounds. So I'm going to go with Vega Squadron. I'm going to flip-flop here. I'm going to change my mind and go with the Sharks.
Okay. Chad here, running the numbers.
Chad also doesn't care about Australia. So
here's the thing. You run the numbers, I run the jewels, baby, because I think that Fragsters is coming. They come to play. Refresh is fresh to death, quite frankly, and he's ready to pop off, cap these morphos.
Yeah, couldn't have said it any more eloquently.
Let's go.
And, you know, for what it's worth, I'm going to have to side with that of the Fragsters myself. Because everybody likes a good story such as theirs. And, yeah, there's a little bit of that, too.
Electoral college.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we can get into that discussion in the green room. Where it is about that time to find ourselves, we do have 2 commentators ready to bring you this action. It's going to be Halvor from the likes of Norway and this young kid from Brighton by the name of Harrietta.
I'm never going to forgive Trace for seeing my passport. It's all he keeps going on about is my hometown and my real name.
I'm learning new stuff about you every single day that passes, really. You've had about 4 different names since we started doing Pro League last season.
Yeah,
you know. All coming from Trace. So it's pretty credible sources here. Yeah,
he's a good dad, is Trace. But Halvor, you know, we're speaking about dads, we're speaking about daddies. What about the guys in the server? How are you feeling? Who's the bigger dad team here?
I mean, the bigger dad team, I guess, would have to be Vega Squadron in terms of they have had more players be able to rise to the occasion in the games we've been able to see so far. But you know, the biggest daddy of them all, you know, tournament-wise, has been Refreshed to me. I mean, you know, Duncan mentioned it. The way he's been playing right now, especially considering, you know, how far off the rest of his teammates has been on average. That's MVP-worthy stuff. I mean, depending on, obviously, on how well Fragsters is able to do. If they manage to make a semi-spot here, he has a case for himself, you know? And I think that's going to be the real interesting battle to see whether or not Fragsters is going to be able to get more people going. I mean, we saw the first game versus Big that they had at the tournament. Everybody chipped in there eventually. I mean, obviously, it went to overtime. People got more time to get acclimated to the situation, but I think that's going to be key for Fragsters because Vega, somewhat surprisingly, have had consistent contributions from everyone at one point, even Chopper yesterday. So I think that's a really good sign when you go into a best of 3 if you're Vega. I'm still going to side with Fragsters, though.
Okay, so you're going to be siding with the Danes. See, with me, I'm going to go with Vega Squadron. I think these guys have got this. I think Fragsters, the narrative that we've been painting, you know, it's such a reliance on Refresh to step on up right inside of this team. He's been kind of the only guy with good stats going his way consistently. And that's a lot of pressure to put on someone who, you know, I'm not going to say new, because he's been with this team like for quite some time now. He's been playing for a while, and he's always kind of been the guy in that position. But I still think that's a lot of pressure to put on one man. You know, he's not as resilient as you know, your Simples, as your Nikos. He doesn't have that same sort of wealth of experience. So I think
not exactly. Like, could have gone with a lot of other players.
Yeah, well,
instead of just like
I mean,
the 2 best players in the world, right?
Well, you know, you gotta make.
Gotta make your point.
Yeah, and you know, then over on the side of Vega, I mean, I think you still have a heavy reliance on JR.
Yeah, definitely so.
But there are other players there who we've seen step up around him. Let's see, though, the pistol round underway, and Fragsters going to be charging in towards this B-bomb site. There's Refresh opening up, but the trade comes in from Hoochie. Over here towards the window. Going to be a 4-on-4. That bomb still trying to get across, but then there's Dragonfly down here in the tunnels. Going to find JR. So man advantage picked up here for Fragsters, and that bomb goes down.
Bomb down, man advantage, and a really hard bomb site to retake if you're Vega. It's not going to get any easier as Chopper goes down as well. No diffuse kits on the side of Vega 2. It just adds to the pain that they're currently experiencing. And well, they're just going to decide to bail out on this one, but Torben, quick to hunt at least, doesn't find anything for it, outside of just getting confirmation that this is a 1-pistol round for Fragsters. So already one of the stats that Chad brought up on the desk, that Fragsters haven't been really that great at winning pistols. You know, it's starting to improve. That's what you need to see. And I was actually really surprised when Chad mentioned the fact that Fragsters had some of the worst, if not the worst, trade percentage out of all the teams here. Because when we saw them on dust2 specifically versus Gambit, one of the things they did so well was the fact that whenever Gambit found any sort of opening, Refresh specifically was there to bring it right back into balance for the Danes. So yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't been able to do every Fragsters games up to this point, but I guess from what I've seen so far, you know, they've been pretty good at that. So maybe it's the dust2 thing, maybe it's just a Refresh thing. In any case, Bobski's kind of caught out in a bit of a situation for Vega Squadron players here over towards Long. He's going to have some temporary help from Stavin, but it's going to peter out, and that's when he goes down as well. So Tony Black finds the first opening of the round. He's also going to be able to pick up an AK. With that armor as well, could be a pretty big factor as we move forward. You can see the rotations already coming in. Vega knows what's up, but Uchi needs to buy time here.
Ooh, he's going to buy more than just time. He finds himself a quick double down in towards middle. That's the bomb dropped as well. At the feet of Vega, they've scavenged some of these weapons, and now they're in with a real shot. Also, keep your eye on Chopper, who going to be soaring in from the back line. It's Dragonfly and Refresh left up, and we keep on highlighting one of these 2 players, and really going to be looking at him to step up here once again. That bomb in full control of Vega. There should be absolutely no way back into this for them. Refresh going to go ahead and tag down Tony Black, but then there's Chopper in the tunnel, still applying this pressure, still going to be making Refresh feel uncomfortable. And Hoochie's there to finish things off. So Vega very, very quickly going to be stealing back a round here on their CT side, not allowing that conversion to come in, and that's going to go ahead and blow up Chad's stats a little bit more. Their second pistol round victory here on dust2, or second of the tournament rather, but still that 0% conversion rate.
They're keeping some things consistent at least. So when they first break out of the theme of not winning pistols, they do follow up at least with not being able to convert. Not ideal. One thing that's going to be really cool to see, again, we've seen Vega being flustered when they've played versus teams that go out with a very high tempo on maps like Inferno. And we know from watching Fragsters earlier on dust2 that they do actually like to have a tempo about them. They're not necessarily going to slow play this the entire time. So when they get weapons to their hands, they're going to be running with it. So curious to see how that pans out, if they can actually cope with it. Chopper's going to start out by finding Stavin. A bit of help from that scout on JR. And, I mean, given the smoke and 2 flashes there on Torben, you'd have to assume that this is just going to be an all-in push towards this B-bomb site. Uchi needs to actually be able to deliver pretty decently, though. Even though he has 2 players near him in mid, he goes down immediately. That's hard to get in for Vega.
Going to swing wide, able to find the first, but Bubski's trading. JR up here in the window, in the arm with the scout. Has to be careful. He's going to get tagged down to 28 HP as well. So the bomb plant coming in for Fragsters. This is already looking like a good round. And Vega going to start to fall off from middle, sending almost everyone in towards the tunnels. Bubski putting in work with the CZ. Going to go ahead and drop another man. Now it is just Torben left up here for the Fragsters. He's got that M4 picked up from Hoochie, but it's not going to be enough. And Vega, they are able to retake this B-bomb site. They get the job done. Look at the HPs across the board. It was a very, very good effort from Fragsters, but ultimately not going to be enough. Still, the bomb plant means they can get a few pistols out in this round if they'd like. It also kind of helps inflate Dragonfly's economy that much more. They want him to have the AWP out early as possible here. And you can take a look at these odds. That is as even as it gets. And I think justifiably so. I think this is a real 50-50 game.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. This is for, judging from what I saw there, one map, assuming this is for dust2 specifically, not the series as a whole. I would probably be leaning a little bit more towards Fragsters simply because we saw the last couple of matches that Vegas had on dust2. It was a single one, and that was a loss versus Monolith. So there's more data to go off of on the side of Fragsters, but it's not like dust2 is a completely foreign concept or foreign map to anyone who's played Counter-Strike for more than about 2 hours. Fragsters just trying their luck with pistols, seeing if they can land anything. It's not going to be the case. I'm not a single point of damage actually taken on the side of Vega so far. There we go. Deadlock broken. Hoochie down to 5 HP. That's actually one of the most annoying things that I know of in CS right now. It's the fact that you don't necessarily run into that many maps that has the distance that doesn't allow you to get a one dig. But the damage drop off on dust2 actually allows you to get big enough distances to the point where you don't die from necessarily a headshot on the Deagle. Which I wouldn't even have an issue with actually being changed into actually just allowing the Deagle to have a similar kind of range as well. Same caliber, right? So. Yeah,
you know, not to mention as though just it always feels so bitter whenever someone like lands what should be a sick 1D and it's like, oh, they've hit him for 88.
People
this
gapping,
is reasonable.
You know, people gapping, people crossing over towards B with the Deagle.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to see that, man.
So one thing you're not happy to see if you are a Fragsters fan is this good start from Hoochie and Chopper. These are two players, Hoochie in particular, you know, really kind of came into his own in the games that we saw just the other day.
Yeah.
And then Chopper is always someone as well that we cited within this team. Usually is like having a good performance if they're winning their games, and that's why, you know, on the first few days when he wasn't really there, it didn't feel great. You know, now we already have these two key players showing up early on, and then you look over at JR, that hasn't even had the chance to don that AWP just yet, so he still has time to come into his own. And then Fragsters, I mean, admittedly, we're heading into their first buy round now. This is going to be, I would say, our first real look at how these guys are going to do here on a Dust and how they're feeling today.
Yeah, one thing that I'm assuming they're not going to be allowed to do as much as they did versus Gambit, that was, you saw those extremely quick cat pushes. Simply because nobody from Gambit ever wanted to deal with anything that was going on in mid. So you'd had Fragsters drop Suicide. But look at this, yeah, Tempo's definitely going to be the name of the game here. Full-on V-Rush and an opening from Bubsky as well. JR's going to be here in time, but not able to actually land a frag. Just takes a ton of damage, and that's the B bomb site loss. How are you going to manage to retake this, though?
Yeah, at this point, if you're Vega, you might even be considering Saber. They're going to try and boost up Crush, take a peek in towards B. Vega, they've assembled the tower.
Chopper could be the key man here. And from that long rotation. Might not actually be able to see anything, and this bomb timer is starting to work its way down here. Dragonfly is down to 14 HP. But Vega needs to make something happen right about now.
They've done a decent bit of damage, but now as they lose Crush, surely this is where you just call it quits, and they are able to find Stab, and Tony Black somehow made it possible with a double, even doing that much more damage. They might make this happen as JR barreling on in. It all falls onto Chopper, and he finds the 1v1.
Does he have time,
Times tick down far too low at this point. Surely he doesn't have that.
Oh, that's going to be a close one. Yeah.
Yeah, just a few milliseconds off. Not meant to be. And everyone within the server going down, but
very labored retake from Vega. They took so long. They were understandably enough banking on Chopper being able to do something from Upper Dark, but it took him so long to actually get into it. He started walking probably a lot sooner than what he would have had to. Obviously, he doesn't sit with the information that we do on the overview, knowing that pretty much everyone from Fragsters is inside of B. But yeah, it takes so long, and Fragsters players are just able to get away with one. Even with a team kill, Stavin definitely messing things up, not actually remembered to reload. Not that he was in an ideal position to actually do so, but yeah. A lot of things could have very easily gone wrong for Fragsters there. Some don't know immediate rush on their side. hanging outside of launch, probably for the best, considering Tony Black was pushing aggressively. Do get a bit of a relaxed start to the round. Smoke goes down to mid, and we want to go back into it. Now there's already established positions from Vega. It's going to get really tough.
Yeah, this crossfire between Chopper and Tony Black looking to do damage out here toward Long, and Flash is raining in. They're not ready for Chopper. This bait and switch has worked perfectly, and they're going to go running into the meat grinder. Continuing this aggression, hung up on trying to get these trades, and Flash is still raining in from your boy Crush over towards Carp. JR going to go to drop another man, Dragonfly, while he is good for one. He's been brought down so low, and Tony Black finishes him off. So Torben, 1v4, Galil in hand, and creeping forward here at Long, he will go ahead and actually lose that duel. So Vega Squadron finding themselves a fourth. You see that bait and switch setup. You have the man down in the pit. Chopper, he just bides his time. They don't know that he's there. He snuck into the position, and everyone's so focused on trying to flush out Tony Black that he's allowed to go unnoticed and unpunished.
Very well done from Vega there, and that's actually one of the harder things to do as well as a T side. Really, just being able to take late control. Ooh, all right, cheeky peek from JR. Knows that there's not too much. There's not going to be an AWP on the opposite side. Just can't fault him for it. Still going to lose out the duel. Dragonfly does some tag damage, but yeah, taking over Long, you know, later on into the round is usually really hard once the CTs have been established, unless they're going for a one-man Long setup. Stavin, been able to find Chopper at least, so that's one man down. Uchi's position has been given up as well, falls off it, and they have a bit of a crossfire setup here between him and Crush. If Fragsters were to get hit. There again, missing.
Okay, not the most convincing performances over here towards short, but Tony Black going to go down as well. So 3-on-3, there's a weapon to be retrieved here. They do try and run the gauntlet against JR, and while he has missed a couple of shots to kickstart this game, he's not missing the second time around. It is just Stab left alive, but he's sprung to life 1v1. Luckily enough, Uchi's nearby to finish him off, and then that will be Vega locking in a fifth. Not quite able to carry the AWP forward, but they can reinvest in it.
A really good sign for Vega, though, as we saw JR missing a fair bit of shots, and definitely shots he should be hitting. Tony Black is not missing anything at all. It's pretty much him finding those two frags on Catwalk there that stems the tide and really allows Vega to get into position, and actually JR to reposition as well. So he nets 2 more kills. But for Fragsters, that does mean that you can't expect to go up against a one-man army. Also requires you to get more out of each individual on your own side. For now, no investment outside of a flash on Stavin. And I mean, they did go for a bit of an eco push here towards B as well earlier on. Managed to get a bomb plant down. See if they're going to be equally successful. This time around, though, there are 2 players on Vega inside the B bomb site, so there's no hope of actually locking them out early on.
Yeah, and it's going to get that much worse just because of Tony Black over here towards long doors. You can see he's pushed all the way through, so he's going to get that information. That's already spurred Chopper to rotate off. He's now sitting down in mid. That means you're going to have 3 players inside of this B bomb site within seconds. And for Fragsters, only running into this round with Glocks. They're not really expecting too much. They've got that one flashbang on Stavin.
Just praying that you're going to get a bomb plant here. Just have to get 3 really quick dinks onto JR from that kind of a distance with a Glock. So if everybody can chip in, that's great for you. But
now this is just a shooting gallery. There should be absolutely no way that you kill anyone here if you're Fragsters, and they don't. So that's going to be Vega finding themselves a 6th round. And it's a worryingly slow start here from the Fragsters boys. If you recall, this was a pretty good map for them. If you think back to
their Gambit game,
their game versus Gambit, exactly. They took a reasonably convincing win there, 16-11.
Both of these teams actually beat Gambit to get to the playoffs as well. So we'll see who's the true Slayer. But right now, yeah, getting way more out of Vega Squadron than what I initially expected, given how few games they've actually played on the map. Then again, I would say that CT side is probably the one that's easier to get around with in that sense. Just if you have like a cookie cutter setup, you can live off of that as long as your players are actually being able to hit a decent amount of shots, get a couple of rounds on the board. So when you mess with the economy of the T's as well, you get even further ahead. So still going to be interesting to see what Vega has to offer on the T side, though. If it's going to be just ridiculously aggressive, or if they're just going to stand around without really too much of a clue as to what's going on. Here we go, though. Weapons back in the hands of Fragsters. No op on either Refresh or Dragonfly. But they've got utility. And again, heavy focus from Vega to be able to get long control here. And Stavin is going to get ran down as well. Meanwhile, the 4 others on Fragsters moving their way up Catwalk.
This is kind of similar to what we saw these guys try and run versus Gambit in their game on dust2 there. Aggression down through short, but they run into this 4-man stack from Vega, wrapping around behind as well. Going to be Chopper. This round's fate should be sealed, and Torben Iorden left in a 1v5. Not going to happen. As Chopper finally emerging on that push round, and Vega showing me a few signs. You know, they've been watching these Fragsters guys, because that's something that we saw them get away with time and time again versus Gambit. It went unpunished, was their ability to just charge down Catwalk and find rounds. And Vega, you know, kind of reading them like a book there.
Yeah, I mean, what is a bit weird is that when we saw Fragsters play versus Gambit, Gambit would normally do, you know, a 1 to 2 man hold on long initially, and then always fall back to just having Doja as a sole defender. And at that point, Fragsters would always commit more heavily towards long as well in terms of how many players they tried to push out. That's why we saw so many situations where Refresh was the player to trade, because they wouldn't necessarily have the first opening, but they would always get a trade and play off of that. Here, they're sending up pretty much players on solo missions against a 3 to 4 man initial setup from Vega Squadron towards long. That's obviously not going to work out for you a whole lot of the time. Decent amount of tag damage here done by Fragsters with the pistols.
Yeah, I think JR even landed that flick in through the door there, but they're about to try and test Chopper, a man who has been getting off to a good start in this game thus far for Vega. A chance for him to build some confidence, pad those stats. A lot of bodies coming his way, though. Flashes raining in from Tony Black. And now going to be accompanied with some 5.56 rounds as he lays down the pain over here towards short. This round is well and truly over. And Vega, what a dominant start it's been from them over on this CT side. Certainly not one that I anticipated them to get off to. I mean, you know, while I did say I thought Vega were going to be the ones to take this series, I figured dust2 would have been a very good map for Fragsters.
Absolutely. I'm definitely in the same boat.
You want to take a look as well over at the stats. I mean, what, we got 14 kills across everyone on Vega right now. There's 13 on Tony Black, 12 for Hoochie. So, you know, no one kind of landing their shots. It always feels terrible to say that, right? But now haven't seen anything, you know, from a team that's kind of, you know, shown itself to be not the most tactically diverse.
But here we go. This is what we saw out of Fragsters that was so successful versus Gambit as well. The drop down and suicide. Well, you have Dragonfly on the off, covering your back. It immediately nets them a quick kill on Catwalk, even though they don't actually pounce further with it. They do actually get to find JR trying to get aggressive to get a trade in. So it's a 2-man advantage. Fragsters should have no issue of actually closing this out if they just play it properly. No op in the hands of Vega, so they don't have to necessarily fear too heavily on actually giving away an easy equalizer. Just well done, nicely played from Dragonfly as well. Uses the Molotov to force Tony out of position. Crush gonna push out. He's gonna be very dead as Bubsky has basically camouflaged himself as a cart outside of long. That leaves Hoochie to his lonesome. And I mean, even though, yeah, we've talked about how good of a start Vega has gotten into, which is, again, a bit of a rarity for them in this tournament so far. And they have plenty of cash on their side. Then obviously not too much to gain from Hoochie actually running around and trying to find any terrorists on a walkabout.
And I mean, Fragsters in that round almost looking like a different team entirely, right? Everything, you know, they kind of go back to what we know they're comfortable at doing. Their bread and butter here on dust2, that charge down through suicide over towards Catwalk. And Dragonfly having a real turnaround there as well, starting to come to his own with the AWP. There was, I mean, even just like, you know, mollying out that man down in mid to find yourself, you know, to further that man advantage. Looking like the Fragsters that we need to see if they want to beat Vega Squadron here. They're going to be finding themselves a 3rd round, however, and they keep 5 players alive at that. So the Danish side are going to start to be building up a little bit of cash, but it does still pale in comparison to the savings that Vega have.
Yeah, it would have been really cool to see Fragsters try something similar again, see what kind of adaptation Vega makes to it, if JR is going to try to get through the smoke earlier on, if they're going to use a boost to watch their cap. But Fragsters have probably the worst spawn they could have had for this kind of a attempt, so they're going to shy away from it as well. Instead, it's just Dragonfly hanging out towards Suicide and going to peer into mid. So a bit of a slower tempo this time around. And I feel like in a lot of the Fragsters games we've seen so far, tempo has been key to their success. When they slow down, they're not as good as a lot of their opponents to be able to make solid mid-round decisions. Oh, that's just fortunate for Chopper there as he makes his way out of mid.
Dragonfly looking very, very confident right now. He always looks right at home here on dust2, and he's out in mid early on. There is JR over at the crossroads, tucked behind the car right now, trying to keep an eye on both short and this cross down in middle.
There's actually openings on both sides here for Dragonfly to either get deep into mid or actually just go for a peek onto JR, because he's obviously focused on something completely different. So yeah, if JR finds himself double scoping, the second Dragonfly decides to step out. There's nobody really in a position to trade either for Vega from the B-bomb site. We'll see though what comes of it. And it looks like Fragsters, well, for now, just hanging around Catwalk, and that's going to offer Tony Black to basically start the flank that really just ended up being the opener.
Now it's just JR and Crush. JR missed shot. Now they know where he is. He's not going to miss it the second time around, and with that he's dropped the bomb. Crush, all he had to do is find that kill, and that round could have been over, denying the bomb plant, but it will come in at 4 Fragsters. Look at how much damage though has been done. So try and get comfy in the after plant. Already Dragonfly going to be removed from the equation, and that leaves Refresh and Stabin. And Refresh still chiming in despite being attacked down to 29 HP. Stabin over here on short. Going to find one more, and now it is just Chopper left in this 1v2. Somehow, some way, Fragsters have found a means back into this round, and time working against Vega now. Barreling on in, Chopper finds the first, still has to rain down death onto Refresh, who holds at the ramp right now, and Chopper, well, he does find it. There's no time for the defuse, so everyone on the side of Fragsters falling, but the round's still going to be picked up. 4 now on the board for Fragsters. Their 3rd in a row. It's going to start to slowly but surely erode down this Vega economy.
JR still going to get his hands on an op, though. So that duel continues to move forward, but definitely seeing more of a positive side out of Fragsters here. Even when they do lose that first man to Tony, who's pushed out aggressively, really quick to actually decide what they want to do. A bit of a pause coming in, wants to talk things through. They're probably pretty aware of where they find themselves in terms of Vega's economy.
Have a quick water break, mate.
It's important to stay hydrated.
But for Fragsters now, that's their 3rd in a row, as we say. Still a chance at an 8-7 half on their behalf, so, you know, very much a way back in to this, in spite of it being 8-2 at one point in time.
Bit of a worry for Fragsters right now is that in every game we've seen them play so far, Refresh has been, almost regardless of how it started out for Fragsters, been leading the way in frags, you know, pretty much being toe-to-toe with Heist Fragger on the opposite side of the server. He's having a bit of a rougher go at it now, and Torben's going to look away at the wrong time. Gets caught out. JR actually just jumps through the smoke, finds Bubsky, but Refresh finally finds a frag to his name. Bombs dropped out. That's going to be collected by him, and still only one player on that B-bomb site. Chopper. If he goes down, still a chance here. There you go. Again, just turning your back at the wrong time, and not a whole lot of margins going the way of Fragsters there, but again, well played from Vega there. Getting the most out of their utility at every step of the road.
Still, there is no denying it. The Vega, they're coming into this swinging. They, there is the saying, you know, start as you mean to go on, and Vega kind of setting a worrying precedent early on here in this matchup. JR going to try and take the fight over in mid, and he does best. Dragonfly, so already man advantage gain. Fragsters in response to this, looking to try and head in through lower tunnels, perhaps to pick up the trade on this man down in middle, but they've decided against it. Now backing away, leaving Bubsky.
Yeah, Stabin Stavin wants to pick up the weapon that got dropped from Dragonfly initially, as he only had a ZZ. It's understandable, so they slow the tempo a bit down. So Scout in hand for him now, combined with the ZZ he started out with. Although it remains to be seen what they're going to be able to do with this. See, again, that's obviously something that comes into play for Fragsters, and how they want to go about it is where that op is situated. On JR, we've seen him play towards Scar, we've seen him play towards Catwalk more aggressively as well. But this time there's a pretty big gap, really, in the entire defense of Vega, as JR is posted up towards B. Actually still opting to have that two-man setup inside the bomb site. So if Fragsters decide to commit here, there's no aggro rotation either. Could work out really well for them. Definitely should be a bomb plant instead. Torben's going to come dropping down into CT spawn. That is absolutely nothing for them. No smoke, no flashes really. To make life harder for Chopper, but they're going to get the bomb plant down, but still have to work with this from a two-man disadvantage. And a scout by stairs. You're not going to get a lot of chances to hit your shots here. Oh, might have spotted the head of Chopper for a second there. Definitely seeing him now. Smoke goes down, though.
Yeah, the scout still yet to do anything but Bubsky. He's risen to the occasion now. Stavin chiming in with another over here in short. Bubsky falls and Stavin left in a 1v2. That I was going to say the young plucky dame, but it's not meant to be. As Hoochie locks in that round and makes it look relatively easy as well. It's going to be a 10th on the board for Vega. The bomb does go down, but still, I mean, Fragsters put absolutely everything into that one round. They're going to get 2,600 after the 2,700 after the bomb goes off.
Yeah, not exactly the perfect amount of money to set yourself up for last round by the first half. Here we are. 2 Galils, 2 Deagles, and a Scout on Dragonfly. Dragonfly's been able to get the tag before JR in a lot of occasions, but JR's always had the stronger weaponry. JR really hasn't been interested in taking that fight unless he knows he goes into it with an advantage. Life tough now, though. Seeing a bit of a heavier, I guess, long presence coming out from Fragsters. 2 players out this time. More isolated defense as well from Vega. Crush with the off. It's tagged. Doesn't actually land anything with his. 20 Black, though, still being that immovable object.
He is just deleting players over here at long. Dragonfly and at Torben left up. And they still have so much yet to do. 3 players of Vega lying in wait over towards this long position. And Tony Black is going to continue aggressing forward. He does force, maybe getting a bit too big for his boots there, but it's only one man to go down. Torben with the D, gonna go ahead and further the chances of Fragsters getting back into this round, but now it all falls onto Dragonfly. Flash rains in. JR gonna miss this shot. No utility though to try and force this gunfight, and JR just toying with Dragonfly. He's gonna peek on out at the very end and lock in the round. 11-4 in favor of Vega at the end of this first half. Fragsters gonna be feeling mighty sore after that one.
Yeah, that was a really rough go of it as well. And I mean, we keep referencing that Gambit game, and one of the things that really worked for them on dust2 was that T side. So 11 rounds was what they managed to get to the name versus Gambit. This time, not as much.
Well, that's it for the first half here at map number 1. Fragsters versus Vega will continue after a quick commercial break.
Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget. But you're breaking down my walls again, just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Staying up when I go out.
They are looking good, and Fragsters maybe looking a bit out of their depth here on Dust. As we see, it's 11-4 right now at the end of this first half. Vega very much with a commanding lead, and we've seen star-studded performances almost across the board. The only man falling silent right now being Crush, but it doesn't matter as much when you have, Tony Black top of the board with 16 frags, everyone else sitting on 15. One of the best team performances we've seen from Vega throughout this entire event. And I mean, even if you kind of think about Vega as a team throughout any other LAN performances we've seen from about the majors, there's normally been one guy really kind of clearly pulling ahead of the rest of the squad. Over on the side of Fragsters, still really yet to see anyone hit the ground running.
No, definitely. So, I mean, 3 players on the side of Vega with over 100 AER going into the second half. And, yeah, as you said, nobody really from Fragsters being able to shine at this point. Well, that doesn't really help matters either.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Bubs, imagine the world where you get glocked down mid on dust2.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
That just doesn't ever happen. But it has here. It's happened in the server. Vega going to be a man up early on. And in response to that, Fragsters, they're left in a pretty dire strait. As you can see, they've had to rotate players off. This A-bomb site is looking high and dry, and Vega pushing on in. Slowly but surely out here towards long. Not going to get tested. They leave Tony Black outside of tunnels as well. He's going to be waiting to see if Fragsters try and regain any ground to make up for losing the early man. There's a smoke for the cross on JR. So slowly does it as they sneak on in.
Usually that actually, well, you're not going to be able to cover the entirety of it with one smoke, especially when you throw it into a teammate. So, well, that gets a bit dicey for them. Crush is actually going to take the fall as well as a result of that missed smoke. Stavin has already made his way around to put on some extra pressure. But there we go, Tony Black, the guy who's pretty much dormant, finds one of the rotations. Actually going to find a second one as well, so he's doing a lot of work. Meanwhile, though, Stavin over towards long. It's kind of been a duel on opposite sides of who can actually do the most for their team. Now it's going to be all down to Stavin, the young Danish star, to hopefully get Fragsters off to
I
a
saw
good
you're
start,
trying
yeah.
to build into that. You build the rising Danish star. Only what 16 years old. He's 1v2, but no, he just gets completely annihilated. And their trend of not doing too great in these pistol rounds does look to continue. As
I was, I got to his 16-year-old, and then his life literally got cut short, which that sounds really dark.
Well, it is, but it's what you want to see if you're a Vega Squadron fan. Now, Torben going to be over here towards the pit with a Deagle. We've seen our fair share of heroics from this position, so
there's a chance. Crush is going to walk out into it, and well, that gets him about the same result as the pistol round did. Immediately taken out.
Oh, Torben going to go ahead and find himself another frag with the Deagle. Now rotations coming on in. You have Dragonfly and Stavin both here, and you can see Hoochie desperately trying to juggle these guns away from long doors.
So the duo over towards Long, laying on the ground. Just Crush and Chopper. A bit of an unnecessary rotation, actually, from Fragsters here. I mean, Torben re-peeked to see one guy bailing out of cave. No need to actually have 3 players stacked up over towards that bomb site unless you're hoping to get weapons. Well, that has left the middle area completely clear for the time being. We still have to remember, they don't really have the utility to fight long distance here outside of Stavin.
Well, now they're going to hear these smokes and flashes out in towards the middle. JR game.
Ooh.
Stuff on Hoochie, but Dragonfly, he's ready for that. He's gone ahead and dropped the man that they try to get up on that boost. Tony Black now sneaking on in toward this B-bomb site, spots out the first player inside of the site. Needs support from JR, but somehow he's going to lose that duel. And now Tony Black in a 1v5. Vega, they let this round slip through their fingers on the back of Torben in the pit, finding an opening double D. The rest of the squad pulling their weight as well, and that will be the round going the way of Fragsters. And we need to see a few more rounds like that from this young Danish roster if they want to start to get back into this game.
So basically saw both teams opting to go towards long with suppressants to start their anti-ecos off. Both end up getting, or suffering losses and not being able to recover from that early on. And Fragsters definitely needed that, though. Hasn't been a lot of things going their way up till this point. And one thing for sure is opening duels. Only one player really going positive for Fragsters in that, and that's Refresh. But he's only been in one of those kind of situations, so that's not going to be something you can build off long term.
Yeah, we see a tactical pause called in right now for Vega. They're going to have the edge in that regard. They have 7 rounds to play with. Here's the replay, by the way, this Deeg performance from the pit. We're kind of hyping it up, alluding to it. Amadi's been pretty quiet for Fragsters thus far. There's the couple of salty Vega boys as they go down, but here is the push. Once again over here towards long. Vega seem to be big fans of it in spite of it not churning out the best results for them. They also managed to get Hoochie down here towards mid, and he's looking now for some Deagle heroics of his own.
So curious to see how much stock they're going to put into that 1 AK they were able to hold on to. Onto Tony Black, and he's been having quite the game actually. Top on the board right now, yet to actually lose out an opening duel attempt he's made. It's 5-0 there. So you can't really fault him if they actually want him to be the point man as they move forward. And complete mid control actually given up on the side of Fragsters as well. They don't even have anyone actively peeking in there. Dragonfly is keeping an eye on it from time to time. That's easily bypassed as well, considering he has a scout though. Like one smoke and he has nothing to do with that, and that makes the role of anyone on side the beast bomb site to deal with a lot harder. Dragonfly is actually going to find that gap in the smoke. Fortunately for them though, that B bomb site has just fallen. How's the cards coming apart? It's not often you see that weak of a defense from 2 M4 players.
Not only that, one of them being Refresh, usually so good at locking down this B-bomb site, and he does fall short here. A critical juncture for Fragsters. Stacking up outside, trying to make their way in. That Molotov going to burn down Tony Black, and actually he gets finished off a little bit faster as the flashes rain on in. It's JR left in a 1v3. And there's just no way that he can get anything done. So Fragsters, they managed to get the retake. They look convincing while they do it as well. They pick themselves up a 6th round.
Just scrapping together as much as they can from that. Dragonfly and Torben. Well, actually, Stavin's also going to find an AK. So 3 AKs actually being able to broaden on the side of Fragsters going into what could be a bit of an easier go of it here. No AKs to go up against on the side of Vega at least. But there's a scout on the side of JR. Hasn't really fully committed to it. But that does also mean we're not going to see an op on his end at least anytime soon. Unless Crusher Hoochie is basically going to sacrifice himself. A much more needed start for Fragsters at least. JR with the scout. Well, has definitely been put into a bit of a rough spot here, down to 1 HP as Bubsky fires through the smoke onto short.
About to get running the way of a Stavin and a Dragonfly now. 5 players ready to push on in. That Molotov going to hold them back. Not enough to deter them though. Still the smoke and a flash on a Chopper. You can try and nullify the man inside of this bomb site by throwing that down, but instead Dragonfly will be given the opportunity to find that first kill, and now you look towards Stavin to try and bail him out. This crossfire set up between these 2 players. Stavin will actually get eradicated there by JR. Now Dragonfly try and go toe-to-toe. JR on 1 HP, and he's still doing damage. Finally going to get remedied by Bubsky. So 7th round on the board here for the Danes. Of course, Fragsters not quite out of the jailhouse just yet. But
inching closer. Double ops actually coming out, and I mean for Refresh, we saw him do really well on pretty much every map he's decided to pick up the op on. I think this might be the thing that gets him going into this game. He's been having a real rough go of it, sitting at 6 frags only up to this point. There's no doubt that he's been one of the main factors for Fragster's success so far. Again, he's opted to go for a pretty aggressive position here. We saw him do that versus Gambit as well, to find a couple of opening kills. Vega, though, they're focusing here on this catwalk area. Crush is going to drop into spawn. There's nobody really here from the side of Fragsters. Instead, it's going to be Bubsky in the B slope finding the first frag. Oh, Refresh just misses out on Crush, and, well, Bubsky's in a world of hurt right now. If Vega decides to push on him, taking their time here.
Lose Crush down in CT as well. Bubsky now only has one man left to find inside of this B bomb site. And that man is JR, who has been allowed to sneak on by. Goes down, and Chopper holding middle. He's pulled this back for Vega. Into the 2-on-2 we go. Torben and a Dragonfly left up, and JR was looking like he was interested in re-peeking that. Does decide against it, so going to be tucked away for the time being, and Chopper still just running amok in the back line, but there's Dragonfly winning out that fight. He's going to hold the defuse, and Chopper has to be fast here. He thinks he's faking it, and that's the round. It is going to be Dragonfly to stick the defuse, an 8th round for Fragsters. As Chopper not thinking that, you know, maybe Fragsters going to have the balls to stick it.
Yeah, no, but I'm completely on board with the decision from Dragonfly as well. Like, he knows his teammate has just gone down into mid. He was quick enough to get through the windows to win the duel versus JR. And with the bomb planted around double boxes, I mean, you're pretty safe from, well, 100% safe from the door area, unless Chopper decides to commit into the bomb site. Even then, that's going to take so much time for him to get an angle on you that you can just go for it. You can hold it. Not a bad call and very heads up from Dragonfly, who's been definitely getting into the thick of things here. The more he has the op in his hands, the better he does for himself, it seems like, in this game. 15 frags and top on the scoreboard. Actually joined by his brother as well. Stavin sitting at 13. They've been getting warm as the game goes along. Just a 4-round deficit really here for them. And the economy on the side of Vega, not too great. One player really with any utility at all, and that's going to be used for middle here. Again, pretty widespread on the side of Fragster. Some stabbing going down. That's even exaggerated further. A lot of this is going to come down to how well Torben can do, and he gets immediately annihilated from his spot on the A site. Little Molotov doesn't quite land. That's still more than enough done for Vega to get an A-bomb site. And Vega, no, Fragsters, they're actually just going to bail out. Double op retake, never really favorable in any sort of situations on any map. dust2 not being any sort of exception to that. Exception. So, had a bit of a string of rounds there from Fragsters, 4 in a row, before Vega finally able to reply. They do so pretty well in addition to that. Very limited on utility going into that round. Pretty much Crush, the only one having anything to offer up there. But quick smoke down into mid and whatnot does all the tricks. 4 players going to stay alive. Crush actually has enough money to potentially drop an op over to JR as well. So we'll see what they decide to opt in for. But comes into question whether or not Fragsters want to leave that middle area as open as they have done so far. They're not really pushing any, putting any pressure onto it early on. Dragonfly hasn't attempted a peek like we saw JR do a couple of times. JR pretty much spent the majority, well, a lot of his CT side switching up his positions. We saw him defending B, we saw him defending Catwalk, we saw him poking towards middle as well. Might be on Dragonfly to do something similar as the game goes on.
Fragsters know this is such an important round now because they've invested everything into it. And a loss here going to leave you reset effectively into what could be a last few rounds. And now Tony Black barreling out in towards mid. It's a blistering pace once again from Vega. Stavin, though, going to find a quick double. The young Danish wonder child going to go ahead and drop 2. The trade's there. Now Refresh alone. Molotov out, things heating up for him here as he does pick up the first. JR just missing the timing to come in with the trade, and these rotations are already coming through from Torben and Dragonfly, but it's Chopper floating around over here towards short. That could turn this round back on its head. He's Looking to try and secure them a path in towards this A-bomb. So as it stands right now, Vega could just walk on up and get this bomb down. You have to get it across mid. Dragonfly holding the angle, misses that first shot. That has allowed the bomb to cross as it's on the back of JR. And now they can just walk this bomb in. Torben, deep within the depths of CT, not in a position where he can actually peek into this and look to deny the bomb plant. So Fragster's going to be left 3v2 in this retake. And we mentioned the money, we mentioned the economy. This is such a winnable round, but if they lose it, that's where the problems start to arise. JR already going to get tagged down by Dragonfly over towards long. Flash is raining in. Chopper on this flank, tagging down Torben. 1v2 and Dragonfly trying to hold the cross. Chopper's got to get a move on here. He's got to get those running shoes on as they're already on the bomb. And they're just sticking it. The Molotov's there. He goes barreling on in, and he will find both the frags, but the round's still going the way of the Fragsters.
They're eking out rounds at this point. They really, really are. Fragsters, they do, yeah, as you say, they do get away with a round win, but at what costs? Look at the buy that they're going to have coming into this. Stavin is going to have some money. He's going to drop off an op for Dragonfly, it seems like. But outside of that, you don't really have too much to work with here. Just Grime, look, when you take a look at the utility that they are able to bring into this. But I mean, yeah, they do get around, and yeah, tactical timeout, that does make sense at this point. Maybe you need to think of something aggressive to do. Bit of a different look onto things. Maybe try to boost someone up on short, see if you can get a two-man push into upper dark, get some sort of map control early on. That's not necessarily going to cost you all of the utility that you've been able to afford into this round. And potentially get an easy opening kill from Vega, because so far you haven't had any sort of aggressive tendencies on this side of the Danish team. It could be something to throw in there. You see the scoreboard refresh. It's particularly the one man that's always been leading the charge for Fragsters, not really getting into it this game. Instead, it's been a lot of the pressure on the shoulders of the two brothers. Stavin and Dragonfly. Refresh is going to get into it here, though. Combining nicely with Bubsky. Find two openers. Again, though, the middle area is just completely open. Refresh gets caught out, not able to actually respond to that. So what was a 2-man advantage is now equalized completely. Bomb's going to go down for Vega Squadron. We do have way more utility to work with here in this kind of a situation.
Wow, Fragsters knocking on the door of Vega here, but that bomb ticking down. They're on the clock, and Hoochie going to try and take this fight even versus Stavin actually decides to back away. And so much damage done from Chopper as that relentless aggression pulling through from him once again. Just a strafing run out in towards mid. And that's the round. Vega moving on to a 14th. And as a result of everybody dying for Fragsters in the round before this one, there's no more money left. And you can see those loot bet odds over on your screen.
I'll reflect that. There's no doubt about it. And again, it's that middle area that's becoming a repeated issue for Fragsters.
I mean, something to note as well is Chopper has just been playing so confidently. Every single time Vega should be out of a round, we see them in like a 2v4 or something ridiculous. He'll be in some impossible position behind enemy lines. You know, he's the one pulling them back into these rounds, and they haven't found a way of dealing with him. But this time, this is interesting. Fragsters, they've already gone through B. They've cleared out mid. Quite soon, the penny's going to drop, and they're going to have a very clear idea where the Vega boys are.
Actually, I have 100% confirmation at this point. 3 players towards that A-bomb side already. You're going to get a 4th one coming in from Catwalk, and then a big rotation from Refresh outside of long. He's going to probably camp out for a little bit. See if there's any sort of regrets from Vega as they realize that they've given up pretty much the entirety of the map without moving forward. This is big, though. If Refresh finds the right time, if he's able to pick up a weapon as well, could be everything for them. And, well, the timing is not with him. Crush turns around to find him as well. Still, though, pretty decent defense here from Fragster's setup.
They're going to be walking into the stack, but Vega, they're making it look easy. They've gone ahead and annihilated everyone. Torben, he's even going to get finished off by JR. It is just Stavin left up in a 1v5. And the Vega boys, they like to party. They've got that bomb down. Stavin, I mean, really not expecting too much from the youngster here. He has been doing well, but asking this much of him at this point in the game feels a little unfair. 15-9, a map point here on dust2, the map pick of Fragsters as well. So For any Danes watching at home, shedding a tear at this moment in time, it's not the best of starts. Obviously, this is still a best of 3, so it's only being the first map in this series. They will be having a shot of redemption over on the next. You take a look at the buy, though, this time around, and it's dismal for Fragsters. The scout going to be out for Dragonfly, pistols up across the rest of the gang. And Vega just barreling in through mid, a very, actually, Fragsters-esque play as they exploit the lack of AWPs, the lack of presence down in mid, but somehow Fragsters, they're finding a couple of kills here and there. It's Chopper once again trying to haul Vega Squadron back into this round, and him and Hoochie certainly getting the job done. Staben has to go above and beyond. And he has gone ahead and found one. So much damage done, and actually it's just Hoochie left up in a 1v2, 1 HP to his name, and there's the peak from Staben. So Fragsters staying afloat for the time being.
Yeah, with well, one of the worst buys they've had all game. That's where they actually managed to win one of the cleanest rounds they've had all game. Strange how that works out sometimes. And surviving with 2 players, I mean, talk about that being clean, and that's just kind of how the picture of the game has gone for Fragsters. I mean, we saw it earlier on the CT side, a couple of the after plants that they win. Chopper would, you know, demolish the entire Fragsters team. It does get them back, at least for the time being. Going to be a bit of a stronger buy this time around. An AK, 2 Colts, UMP, and a Scout. Again, limited on utility. Again, this middle area being abused by Vega.
And there's just nothing left as the reply from Fragsters now. There's no response to this fact. Now you have got Bubsky hearing these footsteps, hearing the players over towards short. He actually is able to win that duel down in mid. In the meantime, Torben taking up position over here at long doors. He's going to start to these players moving into position at short, and that is where Staben comes into play. He's got a lot to do if they do push on into him. But so far, he's risen to the occasion almost every time. Or even painted up with damage, so there you go. That clock going to hit the 45-second mark. This push looks to come in, but here's Torben flanking around from behind. He could change it, the whole outcome of this round, but no, not looking the right way. Wrong place, wrong time, and he does end up getting dealt with. Now just Refresh and Staben left up, split between these 2 bomb sites. They're divided. Saying is divide and conquer. Tony Black going to be leading the charge in towards B. Staben left in a 1v3, and this is asking so much of the youngster, 16 years old. So much yet to do if he wants to keep his team in this first map. Out through mid he goes. He does spot JR in the window. Knows the whereabouts of one of these players, although JR going to be given ample time to reposition. A solitary flashbang is all he has, and Vega sitting with every crossfire in the world set up inside of this B-bomb site. It should be impossible. Staben barreling in, and he will fall. So Vega going to be picking up this first map, 16-10. The Sharks circling, and they do go in for the kill here on Dust. Cash going to be this following map, but for Fragsters, what do we need to see? What needs to change, Halvor?
We need to see better play from individuals. I mean, you could tell, like, even when given opportunities, Refresh, for instance, you know, over towards that B bomb site, just not able to just land shots that he's been hitting pretty much, you know, every time he's been given an opportunity so far in this tournament. That's a really worrying sign. On a positive note, you know, Staben has been statistically I guess the worst performing player out of the Fragsters boys so far at this event. He has a much better game of it on Dust 2. So it could be a thing that balances a bit out once we get into the second map. They shouldn't be completely lost on Cash, even though it's not a map that they necessarily play a whole lot, considering they had to go with the Mirage ban early on. But yeah, no, you know, they've definitely pugged around on it to the point where the individual can feel somewhat comfortable.
That's anything that worries me, though. I mean, Dust 2 is kind of like one of the maps that we so often talk about can be made by big individual efforts.
Yeah,
you know, it is like the puggy map. So it's going to be interesting to see if Fragsters can pull this one out of the depths. Right now, Vega going to be 1-up in this series. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. Then we'll be back with the second map.
Tony Black and company pulling out that chopper and letting it spray there on the likes of the first map. And perhaps we just go ahead and make some sense of why it is that the Fragsters couldn't prevail here over Vega Squadron. Of course, to do that, we do have Sponge and Thorn. Guys, I'm just going to say some of us predicted Fragsters. Don't know who did that, but in this case, what happened in the first map?
I think, the two players from Fragsters that we outlined who played really well in all the games that they won through the group stage was Refresh, and then I thought Torben had a lot of impact. They were both towards the bottom of the scoreboard, but I don't think that's where it went wrong. I think the first half, every single fast-paced round that you saw the guys from Fragsters doing didn't work because Vega want to play heads-up Counter-Strike. Yeah. What you want to do with Vega is you want to isolate them, you want to force them to rotate because you know that they're very sporadic in that regard. Fragsters, for some reason, just opted to play very fast Counter-Strike, and within the first 9 rounds, they had 5 low-buy rounds, either, where they didn't have full utility or full weaponry, or where they were eco or non-pistols. That's a terrible way to spend 9 rounds with more than 50% of them being spent without enough weaponry and utility to actually play slow CS. So I think the first half was the undoing for Fragsters.
There's a 4 rounds total on the side of Fragsters. Certainly not where you want to see yourself starting off here. Duncan, give me some quick thoughts here on your takeaways.
Well, I mean, we'll tie it into your classic tired old intro that you always do, because obviously, the thing that's made Vega Squad popular, and you all know about the likes of all these things, like Facebook. And in the Facebook, actually, Tony Black's Facebook has all the faces of the Fragsters players because they were trying to go head-to-head with these guys. Chopper was taking them down. JR was getting all the kills. There was no magic on their side because you're always talking about of which. And at that point in time, the Vega Squadron guys just easily closed it out.
Not really tracking.
Indeed.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Duncan. Why don't you go ahead and dunk yourself right off the desk.
That's for you, Spud.
My goodness. Spud, someone with true actual analysis of the game, please give us a diagnosis of this.
I think they got lulled into a false sense that fast rounds would work because the pistol round was literally a rush B, and the first gun round that they won was also a rush B. Look, you can see here, this is a more slow round where Starvin is actually able to get, I think it's 4 or 3 kills with the Deagle, and it's left in a one-on-one, and that's where they actually string out Vega and force them to play in rotational CS. Had to hit some really good shots. That's an individual play for sure. But I think that's the way that they should have played the gun rounds earlier because you want to make Vega in a position where they're uncomfortable, definitely not allowing that heads-up CS. We did see pistol rounds going either way, and then the force buys as well.
Every single time they moved slowly on the map, as you'd expect the Danish team to do, they every single time got it to 3v3s, 2v2s. It's like they always could trade at that point in time. But as you say, when they tried rushes, they tried pushing into areas, a Vega Squadron player would kill 2 players. At that point in time, they'd be having to stop, slow it down. So, this is weird because obviously this was their map pick, but I feel as though they really had a bizarre conception of what the series was going to be like. If they just thought they were going to frag out against the Vega Squadron players, that seems like playing into their hands to some degree.
Yeah, and this wasn't necessarily a map where we saw some of the touted players on Fragsters come alive. Mainly Refresh, one guy that we touted to be a heavy hitter within the side of Fragsters. He simply wasn't there like we would have expected him to have an impact.
Yeah, it was actually like Bubsky who was doing a lot of the dirty work. I think when you have a map like this, where you're not actually being able to get into the rounds, like Duncan just mentioned, a lot of these rounds, when they were going fast, they just got blown out, right? That doesn't give a player like Refresh a chance to have a lot of impact. When you're going head-to-head, lots of utilities being used in your way. And look, it's not easy on dust2 to just run in situations where they have 3 members, right? There's a lot of utility being expended when we saw them go long. It just felt, fast rounds for them were bad. That's just the thing to do with the first half. To note on a couple of those points we were talking about, JR in the first half, he had 15 kills. 13 of which were with AWP. Just shows his reliance. So if you can play slow and you can constantly reset that economy, JR without the AWP, nowhere near as effective as what he can be, what he is with the rifles. So that's something to look for.
Well, you want to talk about effectiveness. Let's go ahead and switch now to Cash because we do have a second map in this series. It's actually a map that could be the tide tilter in terms of this BO3. Obviously can end right here on the second map. Perhaps, can it be a better showing for the Fragsters? It wasn't necessarily the strongest one on the first side, but either way, looking at it, 0% win rate in the last 3 months, boys.
Yeah, if you look at the context of that Vega game, though, that was at the Major against Liquid, right? That's a huge game, right? That's another game.
A solid team on that map.
Exactly. That's and sure, it looked like they play scrimmy, but if you watch and you look at the finer details of that game, a lot of their rushes they do actually are nuanced with certain flashbangs. They are scrimmy, but they actually, it's not just run and go. There are certain flashbangs and stuff that they use. So they do play a faster brand of CS on this map, that's for sure. I think the adjustment for Fragsters is, like we're saying, just slow it down, string them out, find a pick, and then force them to make mistakes because you can see how much they want to make a play, especially in that second half with Chopper. He was making a lot of plays because he had to, but they want to make those plays. You know it's coming. So that's one thing that Fragsters can definitely count on.
Also, you would expect this time around, they're not going to have so many sort of false starts, like dud players. I think maybe actually nerves maybe did get to them in that first game, especially when they were down heavily. Once they got on the CT side, things were going fine. They were getting kills. They were picking up the game. The score was way out of control already. Like the guys from Vega Squadron were at 13. At that point in time, with a massive T side ahead of you, you can make plays. You can take a lot of risks, which is exactly what Vega Squadron starts. So I think a benefit of this map, perhaps in contrast, if you're hoping to see the third map, is this is a bit more of an even map. It's not going to be the case that you have to get one side going entirely to even be inside the game. Then again, though, you look on the other end of the equation, it's obviously not a map that the Fragsters necessarily want to play, and that's something where this is, along with Mirage, this is the comfort map that you think of in Vega Squadron's history, where they've been able to get those upsets. So for me, it's like if Vega Squadron, if they have the poise, if they're really legit in this tournament, they just do close it out 2-0. This is where they get it going.
You want to talk about comfortable and comfortability? Perhaps you can find that over at Hellcase, a partner of StarSeries, where in which you can win things. I think it's something about success over there, but I can't guarantee you that. But in fact, you should go over and check it out, and also gamble responsibly. That's also very important. Guys, before we jump into cash, you got any final thoughts?
Just looking at their pistol rounds on those games they had played, they only won 2 out of 6. That's the cache game. So in the context of their cache and the tournament, Fragsters pistol rounds are still horrible. So if they can even get 1 and then convert, which is something they're bad at as well, then that's a positive sign. Otherwise, I think this is just going to be Vega closing it out 2-0. Their players are on form, Chopper's on fire, JR's getting it done. Everything's working right for the Vega guys. So the Vega bus is coming.
The Vega
bus is I like that. That's not bad. Go ahead, Duncan.
No, I also agree. I think that logically, Vega Squadron, this is their map. This is the map that they probably most wanted to play in the series regardless. I think we would have seen it at some point. I think the way that the game has gone so far, I'm surprised how many of the Vega Squadron players are playing actually. It's really not just 1 or 2 players. And over the whole tournament, it's kind of been the same way. Like, JR's a player I often thought wasn't that great in the team in the past. His ops actually been looking pretty legit. They seem to play with an outrageous amount of confidence compared to some of the past tournaments where I only ever saw that when they went against the top teams. And that was almost where it was like, we got nothing to lose in this scenario. This seems like they legitimately believe they're the better squad in this one. So they've stolen the first one. Fragsters, if enough of them come online, they've got a chance here. I don't think it's clear cut. But yeah, I have to side with Vega Squadron probably to close it out 2-0.
Probably going to close it out in a 2-0 fashion, which, if you're the likes of Fragsters, is definitely not how you want to end your run here at StarSeries. They fought all the way to the quarterfinals, and perhaps this won't be the end for them, but we're going to be ending this segment now. Going to a quick break. When we come back, it's going to be cash between Vega Squadron and the Fragsters.
Loot bet. With Hellcase multi-cases, you're no longer restricted by random case opening mechanisms. Now, you are able to pick any of the cells containing skins and actually determine what you win. Use the promo code and dive right in.
Did you know that when you make a trade on CS Money website, there is much more going on than meets the eye? The adventure begins here.
Cool.
And that's how trades are done on CS Money.